Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today we are looking at a preemptive profile, just an early look at a deck I'm pretty excited for, EXOSISTER. We're a couple months away, and by a couple I mean probably like maybe 6 months away total. So it's way down the line, but it's always really fun to look at these decks early and kind of just theory craft ideas here. Not reinventing the wheel. This is pretty simple, but I do want to talk about a lot that's going on in the list because the new cards are so monumental for the deck. I mean, this is going to be an example for years to come that I might reference when I go, okay, I know this archetype came out, it's not that great, but look at EXOSISTER. That came out, it wasn't that great, and then they made, honestly, like, the Exceed's really good, and the Exceed's only really good because of the other two new cards. But like within 2 to 3 new cards, this archetype was completely turned around. I think this will be a legit rogue deck once this stuff drops. So yeah, let's get into this. Also, shout out to Yassine. I know he made a video looking at a profile. This isn't too different from that, but I really agreed with a lot of the choices he made, and this is super preemptive. So this is more about the discussion than having the most spicy list out there. So shout out to him. And let's just start off with the main deck. So starting off with the monsters, of course, triple EXOSISTER Malfa. This is now the best card in the deck, and it's not that close. Triple Sophia, triple Ellis, triple Stella, and 1 Irene. You only don't play 1 Irene because it's like by far the worst one. When you have something like Sophia that just rawly pluses you 1 with a free draw, she just cycles a card. Put a EXOSISTER on the bottom of the deck, draw a card. Super mediocre. And then Stella pulling stuff out of the hand is nice because Malfa is ashable. So if your opponent does Ash Blossom Malfa, then and you have Stella in the hand, you can just go normal Stella, special Malfa from hand, and still get to an Exceed from there, which is pretty good. So definitely solid there. Pretty much you just play 3 of all the better ones, but you do need to play 1 Irene just for the sole fact that some of the effects get much more powerful if you have a copy of a certain EXOSISTER in the graveyard or on field. So you do want to play it as a 1 of. Next up, kind of some spice that you might not have expected. Magistus Flame Zoroa. This card's really cool in this deck. This card's really cool in its own deck, but pretty much it's a nice extender that then gets you follow-up. And that's the coolest part here. This deck does not inherently have a ton of follow-up. If you're able to stun your opponent out going first, you might have like a decent amount of bodies on field and be able to get a search, but other than that, the deck's not like ending you with another card in hand guaranteed. So I do like this because it guarantees you a follow-up. The idea is this can summon any level 4 spellcaster from hand or grave, then pretty much just search you another copy of himself. So you just have that loaded for next turn. Very huge. I like this card at 3, but I could understand dropping it to 2 if you wanted to focus on more just like defensive cards because it is a control deck. So that's it for the main deck, or monsters, the Spellcaster Engine monsters. Moving to the hand traps, pretty simple. Triple Ash, Double Ogre, Double Veiler. This could be mixed around to whatever hand traps you want. Yeah, they're all just solid. I mean, it's just a package of good stuff. From there, you move into the spells. EXOSISTER Pax. This card is really amazing. It's one of the cards that made it so that if they ever made a good new card for the deck, this card becomes even better. It was already really good. It's just an insanely good search card, pretty much. So, really good there. Next up is 1 EXOSISTER Armament. I don't think you need to play a ton of this card, in my opinion, but I don't know. It's still decent. So I don't know. Like I think 1 is for like the situations you need it is probably right. But I also think that you can just oh no, okay. So you can't make Magnifica because it says it must be Exceed summoned with the above material. So I don't think you can Armament straight into her. If you could have Armented straight into Magnifica, it would be way better, but man, it is even a decent extender because you could just target any normal summoned EXOSISTER, make it into a Michaelis immediately, and then use Michaelis to search you Malfa if you didn't start with Malfa, and then Malfa is a guaranteed. Oh, that does make like Armament plus literally any EXOSISTER a Magnifica, which is pretty strong. Like any board that gets you to Magnifica, and it's only 2 cards, is pretty decent. So I'm thinking about this now. Right now I'm going to leave it at 1, but I do think there is potential to play it more. It also helps you going second a little bit too, because you could make an Exceed. Your opponent could try to negate it or something, like you try to search or something with Michaelis, and you could chain it to get into another one. I want to say is No, not Asophiel. Probably Jabrine, because then she's like an impermanence. So then you have like an imperm, and, you know, that's kind of cool. So, interesting. Has some cool uses because it's a quick play. From there, we move to Carpe Diem. A lot of people don't like this card. I don't hate it. I think I would mess around with it as a searchable one-of for situations that it comes up clutch, but I understand if you want to cut it. It just gives you a couple of interesting things. Gives you back row removal for the deck that only was really available in the form of like traps. It gives you the ability to negate cards, which is really cool, especially if you play against a deck that's playing like the Brave Engine. They do a lot of searching, so if they go like Enchantress 4, something like the Aramesir, you can then use one of your Exeeds to tag out, quick effect, and then you'd be able to trigger this and just call Rite of Aramesir. They wouldn't be able to resolve it that turn, just locking them out of that part of their engine, which is kind of cool. So has some cool uses. Monster Reborn, just awesome extender. Honestly, just not much else to say here. Just a good extender. One Pot of Desires. Most like all the, I don't even say most, like literally all of them. Triple Malfa, Triple Pax, Triple Litania are really the big ones you care about. All the, like the only one-ofs are like Vadi, Arment, Carpe Diem, and like Irene as far as the engine stuff goes. And none of those are like crucial do or die cards. So honestly, just the +1 with Desires is fine. It's at 1. I'm cool with it at 1. Then you move to the traps. Triple Litania, this is the new trap. This card's insane. It's like a free banish, and then potentially either another non-targeting banish or tagging into another EXOSISTER monster, which is really strong. Because all the EXOSISTERs gain their interruptions effects when they're the turn they're Exceed summoned. So really strong. This card is almost always 2 really powerful interruptions. It's really powerful. You like want to draw it because you're very consistently seeing your EXOSISTERs. I mean, we play 13 of them, technically 16 with the packs. So really good card, even to hard draw, because then you can search something like Vadi or a Mento to play around certain things, maybe even Carpe Diem, knowing a certain matchup or something. It's pretty cool. Speaking of Vadi, it's a cool follow-up card, but you don't need to rely on it as hard as you did in previous builds with the new support. So just a one-off, when you already have access to like Lutania and like a really strong interruptive board, you're like, okay, I'll just get the Vadi, guarantee follow-up. This is like the only guaranteed follow-up, but you only really guarantee it when you have like a really good hand where you already see access to Magnifica plus Lutania, and you have another search. So you're like, okay, give me the Vadi. And then finishing up here, Triple Imperm. This brings me to, in this build, 10 hand traps in the main. That feels pretty decent. You could definitely wiggle around some other cards, like you don't need to play the Carpe Diem guaranteed. You don't need to play Triple Ash if you don't want. And obviously we have like the strikes as well. So there's definitely some cuttable pieces here, but yeah. Speaking of which, I like the strike. I like being able to have like a really powerful interruption included with everything else here. It's also important to note that our deck almost entirely stays into spellcasters. So something like Rivalry of Warlords. Oh wait. Oh no, I didn't even realize that. Wow, okay, the main deck is actually spellcasters while the extra deck is warrior. So absolutely not. I was gonna say that, and I just realized it when I look now. So you can't use Rivalry. Actually, that means Rivalry kind of kicks your ass. But yeah. But yeah, strike. I just like this. This just feels good. And also when you look at the way that the deck interrupts, you set up a banish with Magnifica, potentially Litania, which is 1 or 2 banishes, and maybe Mikalis on the opponent's turn for another banish. You have a lot of removal. Jabrine is really the only one that gives you like an impermanence effect on the opponent's turn, potentially the Dweller effect too with Asophiel. So I like splashing in monster negation. That's why we got like the double Veilers, the triple imperms, and the triple strikes, because you don't really have you don't access monster negation all too often with your actual engine. So I like being able to cover those bases with the right kind of assisting cards, which Solemn Strike is one of the best monster negators of all time. So really good. So that's it for the main, 40 there. Moving on to the extra real quick. Triple Mikalis, we know this. To make this card, it searches you any EXOSISTER spell or trap, which is pretty much any EXOSISTER card, because you can just search packs and then packs into something. If you make this before Malfa, this card is just insane, because you just go search packs, search Malfa, and now you can Malfa for 2 more bodies, make something like Asophiel. Asophiel searches you a monster for follow-up, one of the EXOSISTERs for follow-up, and then you just from there overlay those for Magnifica. Really, really, really strong. I love it. Which takes us into the rest of them. Double Caspatel. This is Caspatel is the one that searches the monsters, which is cool. Not crazy. The other effect's not that good. It keeps your opponent from summoning from grave for the rest of the turn. Asophiel, you just play because in certain matchups it's just Dweller, and you have like in archetype Dweller. Plus, it has just a compulse effect during the main phase. So like it's Dweller that also has removal on the follow up, and it's pretty beefy as well. So it's really good. So yeah. And then Jabreen's actually more important than Asophiel most of the time. Reading it, you might not think so. She has like the impermanence effects the turn she's Exceed summoned, but also, more importantly, funny enough, her main phase effect to just detach a material and increase all Exceed monsters you control by 800 attack permanently is really big. Pretty much what it means is that if you can just get into her on a follow-up after you like stun your opponent with Magnifica, you're almost always going to just outright kill your opponent. Magnifica can attack twice, so going to 3,600 with double attacks is 72, and Jabreen herself would be 22. So that's 9,400 damage, and that's if you did like nothing else. As it had nothing else in terms of removal or whatever. So just raw 9,400 damage. That's really good because before this was just such a slow control deck that it didn't really have the capabilities of just pushing for enough damage. For the Magista stuff, one Ninaruru to potentially in specific scenarios pop back row if it's really good. But normally you're just making Artemis. Or you're not making it, you're usually equipping it to Zorua. He'll summon something from hand or grave, and then he'll search another Zorua. Or she'll search another Zorua for follow-up. Really important. Then for a couple just standard cards, I say standard, but I'm not even sure. You have Exciton Knight. If you can just make a rank 4 without locking yourself, potentially Exciton Knight against the right deck at the right time could potentially save you a duel. I'm sure there's other Exceeds that could work here, but I just threw him because he works. Vespinato, if you have any of these and they just are kind of just dead sitting ducks on the field, why not overlay them into something better? But even better, I have Double Zeus here. If you have something that's a sitting duck, even better just go into a 3k beater, even if it can't trigger its effects, but usually it'll be able to. Usually it'll have like at least one material on these guys before overlaying for Zeus, which will give you a Zeus wipe. So really good. Couple extra options. I'll throw it out there just at the end here. This guy's potentially makeable, but you're only locking Exceeds or Links. You can't even lock both. So I guess if you play a Cyber deck and you want to just lock Links, like skill drain Link monsters, like I guess he could be really clutch, but I don't know. You could also side him too for those kind of scenarios. You could play a second Artemis if you want for like super grindy matches. Trapeze Magician is kind of cool. Takes any 2 spellcasters and it does like some battle shenanigans. It's nothing too crazy. Baguska, Heartland Draco you could also play for another Exceed that like can just straight up bypass having to attack a monster, so that could be huge. It also can attack for just 2,000 straight up, but it needs to activate its effect to do so it kind of becomes like not that great. Roach is funny, and then you also have Tiger Mortar and Borbo. These should probably be in place of these two, to be honest, because these don't have to activate any effects, and you can just straight up get a format Zeus without activating an effect if you can at least just get to that first Exceed, which is pretty good. And then Dimension Shifter. This deck does like nothing in the graveyard. Like actually nothing. So Shifter, if you want to side it or maybe just hard main it for specific formats, definitely could be a card that's considerable. Or if you want to cut down on hand traps and just play fewer hand traps but higher impact hand traps, Shifter could be something you look at for that stuff. But there you go. Really cool. I'm very excited to test this deck out when it comes. I just love that the deck just feels so much more fluid with Malfa, because just making any one rank 4 Exceed can get you to Malfa if you didn't see her. So the deck is very consistently running through that card. It is insanely impactful. Even if it gets ashed, a lot of times you can just normal summon it. And if you had Ellis in hand, special Ellis, or if you saw it with Stella, boom, special, or normal Stella, special Malfa, still get to an Exceed. Same thing with packs, right? Like there's so many ways to just play through this, and it's really cool that like an ash from your opponent, like yes, it's probably correct, but it just loses, like you still just don't minus it all off of it. You just don't plus. So yeah, that's it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, let me know your thoughts down below on this list. What other things do you think we should consider for the list? Just theory crafting. Is there anything else that's like super interesting, super important to note? I'd be curious to hear your thoughts there. But other than that, I'm going to get the hell out of here. Thank you so much for watching. As always, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff from me down the line. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.